There's an old joke about a woman who sold pretzels on the street for 25 cents. And every day a particular gentleman would come by and put down 25 cents, put down a quarter, and walk off without a pretzel. Always gave a quarter, never took a pretzel. One day he came by, just like he always did. He put down his quarter and he walked on, and the woman said, "Excuse me, the price has gone up to 35 cents. The woman had chutzpah. There are so many Jewish jokes about chutzpah, this special ingredient of the Jewish people, a certain kind of audacity. In this week's Torah portion, we have a story that, though it is among the most bizarre stories in Torah, including a talking donkey and an angel with a fiery sword, it invites an investigation of why chutzpah is such an important part of who we are as a people. The story begins with Balak, king of Moab. He was afraid of the Israelites because they hid the earth from view and settled next to him. They were numerous, and they had just defeated peoples nearby that wouldn't let them cross through. The Moabite king Balak sends for Balaam, a man who's reputed to have his blessings and curses come true. He believes that if Balaam curses the Israelites, then he and the Moabites will be able to defeat our people. Balaam is a fascinating figure. It's fascinating that he's included in the Bible. He's not an Israelite, but he talks to God. He calls God by the same name we call God, and God talks to him. The Moabite king sends messengers to Balaam, this guy whose blessings and curses come true, or thought to come true. The king sends Balaam gifts, and he promises him great rewards if Balaam will come and curse the people. Balaam, however, says he can't bless or curse whoever he feels like. He can only bless who God tells him to bless and curse who God tells him to curse. The messengers go home. They report to the king. The king sends another set of messengers. And Balaam says to them, "Listen, even if Balak, the king of the Moabites, were to give me his whole house of silver and gold, I could not do anything, big or small, contrary to the command of God, Adonai." Despite telling the messengers he can't help, he invites them to spend the night while he waits so he can hear what God will instruct him to do. That night, God tells Balaam that he can go with the men, but only to say what God commands. Balaam gets up in the morning, he gets his donkey ready, he goes with the men, and then God is angry. It was a little confusing because God just said he could go. Along the way, all of a sudden, on a narrow road, Balaam's donkey stops. He refuses to continue. The donkey sees what Balaam doesn't see: an angel holding a fiery sword blocking the way. Balaam gets mad. He yells at the donkey. He gets madder, and he even hits the donkey. The donkey just sits down. And then the donkey speaks to Balaam with words. The donkey says, "I'm the same donkey you've been riding all these years. Have I ever done this to you?" As if to say, "Don't you think I have a reason?" Balaam says, "No." And at that moment, God allows Balaam to see what the donkey could see. He sees the angel with the fiery sword, and he tells the angel, "I'll go back." And the angel says, No, you keep going, but only do what God tells you." Balaam continues. He goes with the men, and now there's no more angel. And he finds himself under tremendous pressure to do what the king and the king's men who are surrounding him want him to do. He's in the king's territory. It's dangerous for him. Yet Balaam, instead of cursing the Israelites, blesses them. Initially, he blesses them with the word God tells him, and then he is inspired and blesses them with words of his own. I think that's chutzpah. Balaam is under bodily threat from a king and his army, and he blesses the people that the king wants him to curse. We might ask, why did Balaam even go along and put himself in this position to begin with? Just so happens that some great Torah commentators have thought about this too. The great 19th century rabbi and Torah commentator, the Malbim, says that God had bidden Balaam to go with them, but to preserve his independent and separate point of view. I think the Malbim here is giving us a central ingredient of chutzpah. The same chutzpah that makes the pretzel seller comically audacious is also what gives Balaam the inner strength to preserve his independent and separate point of view. Chutzpah, which can be insolent and arrogant, also connotes what Rabbi Ed Feinstein calls irrepressible strength, irresistible boldness. Chutzpah, in this definition, he writes, describes a rare quality of moral courage. This chutzpah is at the heart of Judaism. It turns out that Balaam, the non-Israelite who talks to God, blesses the people at God's command with exactly this quality. The blessing includes the following. Hen am livadad ishkon. They are a people that dwells apart. Uche'ari yitnaseh. And like a lion, they lift themselves up. Uchelavi yakum. And like a king of beasts, they rise. Our blessing is in part that we stand apart and as a result, rise to action. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Zichrono Livracha, in his essay, The Curse of Loneliness, cautions us that our willingness to stand apart need not and must not allow us to see ourselves as destined to live alone. Seeing ourselves as destined to be alone and allowing ourselves to be seen that way by others has in the past been dangerous for us. It's led to us being seen as a pariah and hated. Rather, we must walk a tightrope of being willing to stand apart when necessary, but always seeking to engage with others, listening meaningfully, finding common ground, working together for common cause. Perhaps that is one reason the one who blesses us with chutzpah in this story, Balaam, is a non-Israelite with plenty of chutzpah himself. For me, and I suspect for many of you, as we walk the tightrope of living in our era, standing up for what we believe without alienating potential partners, the Torah and our sacred texts, study and prayer and ritual, they're like a balancing pole that we can hold on to help us maintain our balance on what is still a very thin wire. As we look out and we see so many human-made ills that plague us today, I pray, may we be blessed, O God, to have the chutzpah to stand apart and to speak up for what we believe, to take action on behalf of what is right and just in our eyes, yet not to wallow in isolation. Help us to engage with those who earnestly see things differently than we do. Listen meaningfully to them and find common ground that we may work together toward the society God charged us to create, one filled with compassion and justice and holiness. Amen.